que distingue Panjim das outras cidades da ilha? Bem, em primeiro lugar, pelo que se diz, foi a única cidade construída de acordo com um plano. E em segundo, construída, ou melhor, transladado pedra a pedra de Velha Goa para aqui. Quem já esteve em Velha Goa e viu as igrejas e aqueles conventos monumentais, não pode deixar de dar aqui um pulo e deixar-se envolver por esta barulheira do tráfego, pelas casas de comércio, pelas pessoas. E onde é que vamos começar o nosso passeio? Pelo Largo do Estanque, ou Largo do Tabaco. Daquele lado temos Ribandar, que antigamente e ainda hoje liga Velha Goa a Panjim, e do outro lado temos bairros típicos como São Tomé, Fontainhas e Portais.
Ribandar was the hub of activity before entering Old Goa. If you look at the word Rai Bandar, it is made up of two words, Rai and Bandar. Rai means king. Bandar means a port. It was a port of kings. Now, why did they call it the port of kings? The viceroys who used to come over here, who was a representative of the king of Portugal, when he came, traveled all the way thousands of kilometers and came by ship to Goa, and he would formally enter the city of Old Goa, which was then called as Velha Goa. They would freshen up, they would get down, and then all the fineries, everything was done up over there, and then they would proceed to the jetty of Old Goa, where he would get down ceremoniously and enter the city of Goa through the Viceroy's Ark. There was this boat that was coming to Goa, and it got caught up in a big storm, and everybody prayed that please take us safely to, they prayed to Mother Mary, and they said that please take us to a safe port. And then they say that the Mother Mary appeared and directed the devil or whoever it was, to take safely to this, to the play. And when they got up in the morning, they realized that they had touched port at this place called as Ribandar. But the most important and beautiful part of this is there are two crosses over there. One is on the land, on the right next to the river Mandovi, on the northern side of the church, and one is in the water. The distance between these two crosses is 102 meters. That is the exact length of the boat, that had been safely brought to the port.
Mas antes de continuarmos o nosso passeio, encontramos com o Luís Dias, que recentemente organizou um ciclo de conferências para celebrar os 175 anos da Casa da Moeda.
I've been in touch with Casa da Moeda in Lisbon. They have sent me, when I visited them in August or September, they gave me a catalogue by one Damian Paris of all the coins issued in Goa from 1510 all the way to 1961. And there I had black and white photographs of the coins, which themselves were quite impressive, and that's really beautiful. I mean, you can still tell that the work is primitive and not very well finished, but the coins themselves are exquisite. You have coins like rupees, pardaus, half pardaus, and then among the copper coins we have reis, you have tangas, meya tangas, and these were the various denominations in the gold, silver and copper.
You have any idea why these names, they have any history behind, why it is, for example, São Tomé?
São Tomé was Saint Thomas, the apostle of India, and obviously had a lot of meaning in that respect. So I imagine that was the reason why they gave the name to that coin. And I think there's a coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence, that this Casa da Moeda was very close to the Capela de São Tomé, just a stone's throw away. That might have just been a coincidence, or it might have been some significance, I do not know. So that's the reason for calling coin São Tomé. Then you have coins called Manuel, because in the era of the descobrimento, you had Dom Manuel I, the ruler of the time, King Manuel I. So the coins were named after him. So that's the reason for calling them Manuels. Then you have serafins, which were borrowed from the Persian with Sharafi, which means noble. So that, but seraphim sounds very much like our Portuguese seraphim, which means seraphim and cherubim, but it actually comes from the Persian seraphi, and which was used in India for some time, and the Portuguese corrupted it to make it seraphims. Esfera basically comes from the armillary sphere of Dom Manuel I. So I think that is why it was called Esfera and Meia Esfera, because it was half the value. Bazaruku, for example, comes from our bazaar. This was a very humble coin of copper, which was used for everyday purchases. So it became Bazaruku. Dom Manuel de Portugal e Castro, was not happy with the quality of the coins being minted in Velha Cidade. So he ordered a commission, he appointed a commission to look into this matter, and as a result of the findings of that commission, the decision was taken to shift the mint here. Now how the quality would improve just by shifting it, I am not sure, but maybe it was one of the many measures taken, but it was taken as a result of this commission. And it was moved here. The decree to move it came on the, I think if I am mistaken not, on the 6th or 7th of October 1834, and he gave the order to strike rupees, pardaus, half pardaus from 12 mounds of silver, mounds being a unit of weight over the time, and to have reis and some other denominations of copper from so many arrobas of copper. And that the literature says that with this order the mint started.
And why do you think they choose this place, Panjim, for the mint house?
I have a few theories. I just think this is the first place that you get, suppose you cross the Pato Bridge, the Ponte de Linares. It's one of the first places that you come to. So if you were going to be traveling from Old Goa, it would have been the most convenient place to have the site. Also, it is very accessible to the river. Now, if you from where we are sitting, it's not very obvious, but the entrance of the Casa do Medo was on this side, which is called the south side of the house, and the exit, if you like, or the opposite side of the house was the north side of the house, which faced the river. So you can imagine that there might have been possibly two entrances. One was a land entrance and a river entrance, like you have in Venice and other places which have rivers. So it's quite possible that the coins were issued here, struck here, and then sent to various parts of India by boat. So that might be the reason why it was sited here. The Portuguese arrived in 1510 with Afonso Albuquerque, and from that very year the Casa de Moeda started. In fact, the records say that the traders themselves approached him and said that we have a huge currency situation here, a crisis, please help us. And he saw obviously an advantage where he could, by creating currency, he was asserting his dominion over the place. He created the mint, which he began to issue currency right in 1510. It was, as far as I can tell, the first overseas mint of the Portuguese. So that was in 1510. From then it moved on to Cochin and Malacca and other places very soon after. In Damao, some place called Chol and Basain, which is Vasai, all those places. But 1510 was the first mint, overseas mint in Velha Cidade de Goa, or just was known just as Goa at that time. And there it continued. It moved for a while to Panilim, from Panilim back to Old Goa, and then all these centuries later to Nova Goa. Then it went back to Old Goa. In 1842 it went back. It survived there until 1869. But you know, the Portuguese power was already on the decline, and in 1878 we have the monetary treaty between the English and the Portuguese, and by 1870 already it had been outsourced to the British India. So the mint, this was the Calcutta Mint and the Bombay Mint, and the currency was issued from there and used over here. There was one thing that I found interesting. I was wondering why 1834, and I was looking at what was going on in Portugal at the same time, and you have lots of mentions made that in 1835 an order was given to take away all the coins which had the face of Dom Miguel and strike new coins with Dona Maria Segunda.
Why is that?
So this is a very interesting story which is part of Portuguese history. There was the reigning monarch in the 1820s called Dom João VI. Now he died very suddenly in 1826 without specifying which of his two sons, Pedro and Miguel, was going to be the successor. Now Pedro was the liberal, if I am mistaken not, and Miguel was the absolutist who was had the favor of the church. So now when he died in 1826, at that time Pedro, who later became Pedro IV, was Pedro I of Brazil. Brazil had attained independence in 1822, and this gentleman Pedro became Pedro I of Brazil. Now it was not possible and not advisable to reunite the crowns of Brazil and Portugal. So here we had a problem. Everybody wanted Pedro, but because he was already ruling Brazil, he was not considered an ideal candidate, and Miguel was actually had fallen out of favor with his father and was in exile in Austria, but someone needed to succeed to the throne. So what Pedro did to in what he thought was an attempt to please everybody, he stayed on the throne in Brazil, he abdicated from the throne in Portugal and gave the crown to his daughter, who was then only 7 years old. This is Maria da Gloria. And he decreed that his brother, the uncle of Maria, should be the regent until she came of age, at which point she should also marry him. So she should marry her own uncle to keep everything within the family. And so Miguel returned from Austria under the pretext of obeying the orders. But the moment he came, he took the crown and he deposed this girl, and she was forced to spend many years in exile in various courts of Europe. So because this was now a crisis, Pedro had to return from Brazil. He camped in Azores, formed an army, and to cut a long story short, he overthrew his own brother and reinstated his daughter on the throne. So this news took a year to reach Goa, and by that time the decree was given to take away all the coins that had Dom Miguel on them and strike new coins with Dona Maria Segunda. And all the churches and convents that had supported Miguel were closed down. The silver was confiscated, and first initially it was only the profane silver, not the silver of the chalices and used for the sacrament. All this profane silver was taken and melted down to make currency, and later on even the sacred metal was melted down to make currency, because they must have had a crisis. So I found this interesting. This is a little bit of history which I would not have known had I not gone down this road.
Panjim era um pequeno bairro, não a cidade que é hoje. Em 1832 é elevada à capital e é nessa altura que todos os edifícios e escritórios que estavam em Velha Goa passam para aqui. E onde alojar as pessoas? Exatamente aqui, nas Fontainhas, o que os guias turísticos designam de quarteirão latino. E vamos aproveitar que estamos aqui e tirar umas fotografias. Que tal?
These were the first two places where the settlement began. Later it spread to other areas, including Kampal and the other places. But Fontainhas and Saint Tomé were one of the first few places. So I think because everybody began to settle here, it assumed importance because a lot of the transactions must have happened in this area.
It was basically and purely a residential place, though a little bit of business could have happened like today. In today's colonies, in residential colonies, we do have a little bit of business. So maybe earlier that place was a huge plantation of coconut trees. It became Fontainhas after degeneration of the name Font Phoenix. There was a carved out plaque of the phoenix bird on top of that spring. Today it is not there. But the degeneration of that word Font Phoenix became Fontainhas.
What is today the post office, which once was the stamp itself, I guess, the tobacco depot, and they must have seen a lot of trading there, because tobacco was once seen as a solution to Portuguese economic problems.
And tobacco was being sent from India to the European countries, or Portugal for that matter. Now there was a place required to store it. And this building that was there, which was later on, which we today call as the General Post Office. Earlier it also housed the police station, it housed the telegraph office, and at one time in the history they stored tobacco. The main business that happened there was tobacco and spices. That's what the Europeans came to India for, were the spices and the tobacco.
There is also a record of a jail being not too far away from here. We know that the bazaar was over there, and that has moved now to the main bazaar in the Panjim, in central Panjim.
Panjim has got another very important aspect. It has the Kamr municipal, or the Panjim municipality, which we today call as the corporation of the city of Panjim. Incidentally, it is the first municipality which the Portuguese had instituted in 1512, 1515, between that time at Old Goa. They shifted, and that time it was the Senad. It became Kamr Municipal when it was shifted. It was called Kamr Municipal de Goa, and within another 3-4 years it became Kamr Municipal. So that is the first municipality of Asia. The other first that we have of Panjim is the causeway. Between Ribandar and Panjim, it was a very marshy land. Many people ask, what is this causeway? A causeway is something that is built, over a marshy land, where you have got marshy land on one side and the river on the other side. The Jesuits built that particular causeway, which connected Old Goa, Ribandar to Panjim. It had 40 arcs. And if you notice, we have seen the Pato bridge on one side and the Ribandar bridge on the other side. They are not simply bridges. The Jesuits, they constructed this causeway, which again is not in a straight line, it is at an angle, so that whenever the high waters came up and pushed against this wall, it did not put 100% pressure on the wall, but that angular direction allowed the water to move on the sides and then go inside the rivulets, which the Ro the Ore, what we call Ore Creek and the Ribandar Creek, so that the entire pressure would not come. That was what they decided. Now Portuguese had a very strict rule. You could not enter the city, any city, bare-chested. The farmers and all, they have the habit of just working without, they are used to working the same. So those people who are coming from Santa Cruz to sell their vegetables or whatever into Panjim with the big parties on their head, the baskets on their head, they would stop at that 4 pillars on those benches, put down their pate, and they had a big long gown. They would wear that gown, pick up their pate, sell their ware, come back over here, remove that, put it back inside and go back into the city. 10th of December 1952, the first big hotel that came into Panjim was Hotel Mandovi. I'll tell you a very exciting story about another hotel that was over here. Like I told you, there was a fort at Miramar Beach, and that beach was called as Praia Gaspar Dias. So how did that name turn from Gaspar Dias to Miramar Beach? Now there was a small hotel started by the Roncon family and Mr. Fernandez, Remo's father, and I still remember that hotel. It had a small wooden sopes outside, a small roof, and it had a house behind where the present Yatri Niwas is, and the credit for the name Miramar to this particular beach has to be given to the bus conductors of the local buses. Now what they would do is, when the bus was leaving Panjim, they would say near Hotel Miramar, and over a period of time they started saying Miramar, Miramar, Miramar. So the whole name of that place became Miramar because of that one small hotel that was there. There is no particular theory by which the name has come, but the historians have given it two different names. One is Pancham Khari. The other historian said it is a Panchagani Kali. Kali means, a bud. Bud would be interpreted as tax that was collected by the Portuguese for the goods that went out by ship and came in. But I have my own version, and that version is not related to history, but it's related to the culture of our land. If you look at the name Panji, during Portuguese time it was called as Panjim, then it was called as Panjim, then it was called as Panji now, but the local version of it is called as Ponje. And if you look at deeper into that particular word, Ponji in Konkani means great grandmother. Now I relate this particular thing to the fact that earlier there were big families, and there could have been a very aristocratic family in Panjim who had many daughters. I stand to be corrected, but they could have been married to different areas like Pernem, Valpoi, Samorde, Kankon, Margaon. So every year or every 2 years, when those daughters came back for delivery, like today we did not have that culture of the husband and wife traveling together. So anybody asking, where are you going? They would say that, they would not say they are going for the delivery, but they would say that they are going to the Ponji's place or the great grandmother's place. So over a period of time, when they saw the same person going for delivery to a place, they would say, you are going to Ponji, you are going to your great grandmother. So over a period of time further down the line, it happened that any person coming to this area was thought of going to his Ponji's place or to a place called Ponji. So this is my version, and when I spoke about this to the late poet of Goa, Manohar Rai Sardesai, in fact, he appreciated that this was one way that we could look at it from the casual sense. We never know how far it would have been true.
Panjim cresceu, não há dúvida, há novas pontes, novos edifícios, mas são bairros como este que nos fazem acreditar que há coisas que não mudam e por alguma razão chamam os goeses de sossegado. Espero que tenham gostado de estar connosco, de visitar todos estes lugares, e eu cá estarei consigo, como sempre, daqui a 15 dias.